You've often said that teaching wasn't your primary profession to go to. It was
I'm an accidental educator. I realize that my entire purpose of my life is working with children. I would see my students missing from the class. Either that Naga boy or that Mizo boy or this girl from Arunachal or from Assam. Like I said earlier, the landscape of education is all about coaching, and
Yeah.
coaching. Even the 5-year-old in my school knows what is the most important thing in the school: character first, competence next.
How do you think AI can shape the next generation of learners? Today we have with us Dr. Seetha Murthy, Director Education at the reputed Silver Oaks International Schools, leading their academic vision across campuses in Hyderabad, Bangalore and Visakhapatnam. She is one of the founding members of the Association for Heads of IB World Schools across India and South Asia. She is also a guest of honor and speaker in multiple education conferences across India. And she is also a recipient of honorary doctorate from Linköping University, Sweden. Welcome to the podcast, ma'am. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Nishan. Thank you very much.
We'll start with your journey as a whole and your education philosophy, ma'am.
Mhm.
So, you've often said that teaching wasn't your primary profession to go to. It was just one of the options which were available at that time.
Yeah.
But how did you end up staying in it and finding your purpose in it?
I'm an accidental educator because, like you said, it was not my choice to be a teacher. I was married to an Air Force officer, and we live in very remote places in different parts of India. So the only thing that we can do is teach in our Air Force schools, and that's how I started teaching career. Not that I enjoyed it much in the initial years, but I learned a lot. I think the turning point came when we went to Shillong in 1999. I was there till 2003. I was teaching in a school there, in a senior secondary school. The students out there, the Northeastern students, which is a real cultural mosaic there, they made me feel the purpose of teaching.
Mhm.
I think that has been the turning point, and since then, there's no looking back. I realized that my entire purpose of my life is working with children.
Also, a couple of years ago, when I actually visited your school, Silver Oaks, I've seen your nameplate stating it as principal learner rather
Yeah.
than principal, which was one of the, I would say, an eye opener for me too. So, from being a teacher by circumstance to a principal learner, how has that evolution kind of worked out for you?
So, like I said, the turning point came in Shillong, working with my students there, for the 11th and 12th graders. To work with them, I had to learn a lot
Mhm.
because I had to understand the socio-cultural fabric there. I had to understand what works because the society is a little different, unlike the mainstream society that I'm used to, particularly the society in Shillong, where it's in Meghalaya, they have a matrilineal society.
Mhm.
So, however strong, macho a boy may be, it's the mother or the sister that he's scared of
Okay.
because it's a matrilineal system. I had to learn everything about their background before I start working with them, teaching them, helping them learn. That started my journey of being a learner more than being a teacher, in fact. From there, when I moved to Hyderabad and when I joined Silver Oaks in 2005 as a principal there, now it's a different context altogether from where I
Yeah.
came to where I am, though Hyderabad is my hometown. I came back to this place after almost 15 years, 18 years. Okay. Everything changed. The landscape of education changed here completely. While some are good, some I wasn't very happy about. So I realized one thing, that if I have to lead a school, I have to be the learner first. Okay. If I have to make the teachers see the beauty of teaching in the classroom and what is important as learning, I have to be the learner. So I changed my nameplate from principal to principal learner. And I used to challenge the teachers and the students in my classroom that let's see who learns more today. And I would share with them at the end of the day what I learned that day, and I would hear from them. That's how the culture of learning itself had become very important in our ecosystem. So that's the change of the nameplate. I continue to be so, by the way.
That's really inspiring. I hope all of us learn a lot from today's conversation as well. So, you've mentioned that you've had to deal with different kinds of socioeconomic backgrounds of students, right? From Shillong to Silver Oaks here as well. How has those contrasting experiences kind of shape your education philosophy as a whole, and how did those also kind of shape your thoughts on aspects like curiosity, motivation, and the entire spirit of learning?
So that will ask for a long answer. I
Mm.
hope you'll be
Yeah,
okay with
absolutely,
that.
absolutely.
When
All yes.
when I said I started my teaching career, we were in Mumbai. My husband
Mhm,
was posted to a suburb of Mumbai called Mud Islands,
mhm,
okay,
mhm,
which is supposed to be a very fascinating place. Otherwise, there's a small Air Force station there. And we had a a primary school, Air
mhm,
Force primary school, where the children of our Air Force personnel would come to. But also, we would take admissions from the neighboring Koli villages, the fishermen
mhm,
villages.
mhm.
So you imagine in my classroom, I started my career with pre-primary. So in my classroom, I have children of the officers, children of the men, and children of even the DSC Jawan who had got the gate, and I had the children of the fishermen in my class. Okay. Now you see, what do I have to understand? If I have to make them learn, I need to understand. One is the expectation of the parents. Two is the environment from where our children come, and then begins the teaching learning
Yeah,
program.
yeah.
So having worked there, then I also worked in Gwalior when we were
Mhm,
posted in Gwalior. All of us had to do some secondary work, voluntary work besides a primary job that we were doing. I was taking care of the handicapped children,
mhm. Okay.
specially abled children. Back then we didn't have this word specially abled, so we used to call them
Yeah.
handicapped children. But I in the 3 months of work that I did with them, I also understood that specially able children require a different acumen from a teacher, because the parents' expectations are completely different from the earlier classes that I was working with.
Yeah.
Then I moved to Hyderabad, I moved to Shillong, I mean, there was Saharanpur in between, which I forgot to talk about, so Sawa. So, south, north, east, northeast, west part of India, every way the communities are different, the parent generation is different. By the way, when I talk to parents now, I tell them I can write a paper on parent generation, because not children generation that we talk about.
Yeah. Yeah.
When I started my career nearly 35 years ago, parents were different, parents are different now. So the different socio-cultural, economic
Mhm,
l- backgrounds of children will determine you as a teacher, actually. I also work with Prajwala children here.
mhm,
There's an
mhm.
NGO
Okay.
called Prajwala here in Hyderabad. I work with the children of that, because the children who go to Prajwala schools are children who come from a very, very challenged background. I really don't want to go into that
Yeah.
detail,
Yeah.
but working with them. Then we also work with children of schools run by Rural Development Foundation in Telangana villages.
Okay.
Okay, so these are largely children of farm laborers.
Mhm.
Now you imagine the land, and the children who come to my schools, by the way. When we had schools in Bangalore, the children in Bangalore are different. Children in Hyderabad,
Yeah.
we have schools in Vishakhapatnam,
Mhm.
the children there. So every socio-cultural landscape will demand of you to understand the environment before you begin the entire teaching learning program in the school. So I think for me that has been a very rich experience, very deep lesson from every place that I worked in, that makes me feel more complete as a human being first, and then as a teacher.
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think you've mentioned a lot about understanding the students, right?
Yeah.
You've also emphasized many times this philosophy of inside out education,
Yeah.
right? Helping students kind of understand, connect with themselves before connecting with academics. How does that play out in a real classroom practically?
It's interesting question. Again, I'll tell you from Shillong
Yeah, yeah.
stories. Okay. When I was teaching these 11th and 12th graders, back then the story in Northeast was different, and now it's a different landscape, by the way. When I went there, every third day, fourth day, I would see my students missing from the class.
Mhm,
Either that Naga boy or that Mizo boy or this girl from Arunachal or from Assam or different states I had
mhm,
them from. There was a time when there was an agitation called for, and these 11th graders are going to join the agitation. And what is agitation for? Back then, it was about no, you should not take Bangladeshi immigrants into
mhm.
your.
Got it.
So I called them, in what way are you affected about it? So my first lesson into understanding children's scenario at home or generally, and how do I bring that into the classroom?
Yeah.
Okay. Most of them had this notion that they wouldn't sing Janagana Mana, by the way.
Oh, okay.
This is 1999,
Mhm,
2000, I'm
mhm.
talking about. They would think it is some prayer song and it's something about India. We don't need to sing it. And, there were some notions like that which were indoctrinated into them.
Mhm.
And I had to actually get the meaning of the national song, national anthem, and tell them, see, it's all about praising the landscape of the country and the people of the country. It's not a prayer at all. So from there begins understanding the learner. I remember this favorite student, all of my favorite students, but one of them, a Naga boy.
Mhm.
But by the way, that generation never saw Independence Day celebration or Republic Day celebration in the
Oh,
Northeast,
okay.
because they used to have 48 hours of month.
Mhm.
Okay, no Indian flag should be hoisted there. I'm talking about 25 years back. On 12th August, before the Bandh was called for, because we all knew the Bandh is going to be called for. So I asked him, he was very artistic, very creative. I said, can you make flags for
Mhm,
all of
mhm.
us to wear? So he made them very beautifully, very colorfully. And but then he had the Naga flag here and then the Indian flag here. Okay.
Okay,
I
okay.
respected it. But what I'm trying to say here is why it is so important to understand learners before you begin your teaching.
Mm.
From there, I moved to Hyderabad. Like I said earlier, the landscape of education is all about coaching, coaching, and
Yeah.
coaching. Everything was about how many hours will the child sit in the classroom, how many sums will a child do, how many exams, how much did he score. It's all a very quantifiable
Right.
thing. Nothing is qualitative
Mm.
about it. It really shocked me. And oftentimes, when I would talk to parents, all they're concerned about is how many marks did the child get. It's not about what did the child say, how did the child feel, what else does the child know about. So that is when this inner calling had come that we need to have value generation more than marks generation.
Mm, mm.
Grade generation can come naturally if the student has a, a certain value system within him or her. So that's when I started using this inside out approach. I must admit it is a borrowed term from
Okay,
Dr. Stephen Covey's book,
okay.
Seven Habits of
Yeah.
Highly Effective People. It's like a Bible for me.
Mm.
Somebody gifted it to me way back in 2003. Okay. And whenever I have any challenges, I turn to that book even today. So the inside out approach, the term itself comes from that book. And I felt inside a child has to be very honest, have integrity, be principled, more open minded and balanced. Then outside, he will know how to organize his learning.
Right.
So that's the inside out approach which I started working with from 2005. Thankfully, Mr. Dhananjay, who owns the
Yeah.
schools, completely believes in something like this, very value oriented, very integrity oriented person. So the two of us felt our school should have inside out approach where all children build their character within, which drives the competence outside. That's the long story of the short question.
That is amazing, ma'am. We'll these are very interesting stories and very contrasting stories from your Shillong experience to
Yeah.
this one. And also, if kind of you've watched generations of parents, students, and teachers change in different ways, right?
Yeah.
In different locations, even here as well in Hyderabad. Uh, what are those? So, I mean, one or two changes you see a hope for in the future, or a couple of changes that concern you that might become problematic as well.
So when I started
Hmm.
my career, I would say parenting was by default.
Hmm.
There was no great art behind it or great science behind it. It was by default because in India, parenting comes very naturally to
Yeah.
people. So it was a beautiful phase that I saw back then. Slowly, I started seeing from default, there was some amount of designed parenting,
Yeah.
more articulated. We need to do this, we need to do that.
Hmm.
Now I see a lot of interference from the parents, which is more controlling, not really enabling. You may have any terms like helicopter parenting, kangaroo parenting, but what I feel is while there are trends of unnecessary controls or unnecessary supervision, things like that. I also see parents who have got a very fine balancing act. I really admire this parent community that I meet once in a while. That they come and tell me how they have completely shut down the gadgets, completely shut down you know the phones and
Yeah.
or the other gadgets at home, because they decided that we need to have quality parenting. So they go out for walks and they have a telescope on their terrace to watch the stars. So if I have to say, 60 to 70% of the parenting that happens now is by design, which is not a great design. 30 to 40% of it does really happen very beautifully. And I do wish, there are more parents who begin to see the positive side of parenting than the controlling side of it only.
As you mentioned about parenting, and I take liberty to ask your question as a parent. So I'm really fascinated with this inside out philosophy, but
Hmm.
can that be applied by parents as well? Do we as parents do something to
Yeah.
get that out of child?
You have to set the ground rules, no?
Mhm.
Like I always say, like even the 5-year-old in my school knows what is the most important thing in the school. Character first, competence next. Then I ask them, what is the most important thing at home? They don't know.
Yeah.
Because we clarified expectations.
Mhm.
I think
Mhm.
parents have to clarify. When I'm talking to somebody, you should know that you should not disturb me. Clarify.
Right.
Because, giving attention to the child is one thing. Making the child feel that you are the son of my solar system and I will drop everything to give you attention is the most unreasonable parenting. I
Yeah.
don't think that's the way you should do it. So I think the best thing a parent can do is clarify expectation, have some essential agreements at home that what is acceptable, not acceptable, okay, and stick to them.
Hmm.
Don't keep
Yeah.
shifting gears now and then. Like,
Right.
when you said today, when you said that when I'm talking to somebody, you will not disturb me,
Yeah.
okay, tomorrow, you should not give him attention when he disturbs you while you're talking to somebody.
True.
So, that consistency in maintaining the expectation,
Mhm.
I think, is the trick to everything.
Got it, ma'am. On that note, we'll move to the next section, ma'am. Here, basically, we would want to understand your views on AI in education, as technology as a whole in education, I would say. You often speak about schools shaping societies, right? In that context, how do you think AI can shape the next generation of learners?
We need to know how to work with it, how to optimize AI for learning. This is something we all have to accept and move ahead. Okay. Now, if schools have to be the lighthouses to a society, and if schools also have to amalgamate the AI and the technology into the school, because the primary purpose of a school is teaching and learning.
Yeah.
But then for me, it's not only teaching, learning. Schools are ecosystems, where
Yeah.
um, I read it somewhere recently that says that school is a workshop for life.
Yeah.
Okay. So, in a scenario like this, with AI coming in, the teachers may not know, but the students know what exactly to do with quite a few tools that they have on the AI. So, I think what we should do as a school is help them choose wisely and use prudently for their learning. Now, what can we do within a school? What we started doing was every teacher would feel skeptical that if I give this assignment, I give this project, they're invariably going to use a AI
Yeah.
tool to complete the project and submit a photocopied version.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
everything that you get on ChatGPT or other tools is a photocopied version. No, they just collect everything from different sources and
True.
keep it available there.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, in a scenario like that, what did we think? This was 1.5 years ago.
Mhm.
Until then, we didn't really wake up to the AI call. All
Yeah.
right. So, 1.5 years ago, I told the teachers, all right, let them do it.
Mm.
Let them write, type, bring pictures, anything they want to. But let them debate about it as to why they think that project is the right project
Yeah.
for the task given to them.
Mhm.
Okay. So, when students have to articulate or debate or justify their work, that means there's a more meaningful deep learning when they can do that. So
True.
they may do anything of, they may just get a printout into the class, But if they have to debate about it, they have to know every part of it,
Correct.
every bit of it.
Mhm.
So that was a first light bulb moment that, oh, okay, let them copy, let them do anything. But if they can justify for us, the learning is justified. Okay.
True.
That's when the first shift happened in the teachers' mindsets also, that we don't have to always be suspicious of children,
Mm.
that we can actually trust them. Because if you increase the challenge, they will be able to meet the challenge.
Correct.
Okay. So the journey started like that. Then the next step that we had taken was, we have something called creative writing. We call it the word craft.
Mhm.
Every weekend, the students have to write something on a given topic, or maybe not on a given topic. They have to write a creative write up, bring it to the school. So, in the earlier days, the teachers used to correct. Later, we did a lot of collaborative work. All four children would sit together, exchange their work, give comments on each other's
Mhm.
work. But to give comments, everybody has to be competent enough to give comments on others'
Correct.
work. That's when the AI came into use.
Mhm.
So, we used to give them the tabs. 1 year back, we started this. We gave them the tabs. We asked them, type your work onto it. Okay, because we didn't really want to waste any time there. So once they type it, we ask them, okay, now ask ChatGPT for a improved version of what you did.
Okay.
We would give them the printouts. Now we say, compare the two.
Mhm.
Your original work and the refined work of ChatGPT, what has been different? How has the language changed? Okay. This started proving to be a little more interesting for them, because they could assess themselves. From there came the assessments for term exams.
Mhm. Mhm.
Okay. In the term exams, we told them, okay, write everything in a typical conventional way. And then we said, okay, now the same question paper, upload it onto onto the chat GPT, ask for answers according to ninth grade CBSE paper and
All the
things like,
prompts. Yeah.
so
Yeah.
prompts. The prompt is something that we really worked on, because if
Mhm.
you don't give the right prompt, you know very
Yeah.
well.
Exactly.
You are the expert in that. Okay. So term exam papers, the teachers would normally correct, but then we would have a chat GPT answer too.
But
And then we would ask the students, compare.
Mhm.
Where do you think you need to improve? So this is how we started bringing AI, or accepting AI, or optimizing AI so far. I remember when you came and
Yeah.
exhibited your tool, which was very interesting, because all the data points that your tool can give will be great assistance to teachers. A
Correct.
lot of manual work can be cut down,
Mhm.
right? So I think schools have to find ways to make it more meaningful, more challenging. At the end of it, it's all to optimize learning.
Correct.
So I think that's where AI comes into picture in
Yeah.
schools.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, my next question was connecting to that, as to how can, because AI does a lot of real time analysis of
Yeah.
learning data, which is slightly more deeper. Uh, uh, so, do you think it can support teachers in a much better way rather than just using it for evaluation of students?
It can be used in much way. One is time.
Yeah.
One is like you're able to get back to the students at the earliest.
Mm.
Okay. You're also able to show them the right models immediately. Otherwise, it's the comments from teachers that would tell the student that this is how I should have improved.
True.
But AI is giving us even the right model. If you have to do a descriptive writing, or you have to write about magnetism, or you have to
Mhm.
give examples for polynomials, AI is able to give all that.
Right.
So it saves a lot of time of teachers,
Mhm.
manual
Mhm.
work. But I think this time we experienced it ourselves, when all the answers that we have taken from ChatGPT made the students compare their original answers with that. There was a lot of improved learning immediately. Where students could say, this is where I have to improve.
Yeah.
We made them highlight all that.
Mhm.
If we have a platform like yours, I'm sure that can be faster than that. Okay. Yes, it will leverage learning. Yeah.
Right. And at the same time, because people are increasingly driven by AI through the world,
Yeah.
but you've always emphasized on these values of a classroom being emotionally safe,
Yeah.
right? How do you think we can ensure that the human connection and the emotion is kind of nurtured in this AI driven world?
I asked the same question to my students a few days ago. There were two groups of students. We gave them this question, that Imagine there's a drawing competition in the school, and students bring a drawing from AI images,
Mm-hmm.
okay, and win the competition. Is it right?
Yeah.
The students debated as to why it is not right, because it did not allow for creativity or the creative juices inside a
Mm.
human mind
Yeah.
to be flowing around and bringing a better output. Okay. And that's when we started telling them, what if students bring AI dependent answers?
Yeah.
Okay. Is it right? Then they would come back saying, no, then where is the learning that's happening? From there, we talked about social and emotional health also, and the
Okay.
value system,
Mm-hmm.
which we are. So we asked them, I believe in making them generate values instead of telling them what is right or wrong.
Right.
I would not like to say this is right or this is wrong.
Mm.
I would ask them, what do you think is the right way of doing it?
Okay.
Engaging students in these kind of conversations and getting the every child, every human being for that matter, knows what's right, what's wrong.
Yeah.
Okay, we just have to coax that thing from out of them. Okay,
Right. Right.
that's what is inside out approach
Correct. Correct.
also.
Yeah.
So we make students think twice about what they are doing, what they should do or not do.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that the emotional health or the mental or the social health is preserved. Now comes the question of FOMO. Okay. All right, I will not be AI driven. I will do drawing on my own. I will do this. But what about the social media life
Yeah.
for the adolescents and the preteens and the teenagers and all that? That's where the value system comes into picture. We ask them that, do you really feel validated
Mm-hmm.
only if you use abusive language in your chats? That's when your friends accept you.
Yeah.
Is this the only
It's
way they
emotion.
can accept you? Then the child will start thinking as
True.
to, no, I don't think I want to be validated only because of that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So preserving values is by the way, it's a continuous challenge.
Yeah.
Every day you have to reinvent yourself.
True.
Every day you have to reinvent a question. Like this morning I was counseling a seventh grader.
Mm-hmm.
He happened to have seen some undesirable things on the YouTube,
Okay.
and he should have kept it to himself, but
Mm-hmm.
he started coming and boasting in the class. I've seen that and I've seen this. So after some conversation with him, I asked him, why do you think you wanted to
Mm-hmm.
share it? So he said, there's this boy in my class who's been with me for last 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
At the end of last year, he had a fight with me and is not talking to me. He's very popular in the class. Okay. And he's not talking to me. So I wanted to get his attention
Attention. Yeah.
by saying I can also do things that he does.
Okay.
Okay.
Got it.
So I asked him, so that means you want his friendship only through this? So he of course, you have to spend a lot of time, a lot of patience to help them generate their own values.
Okay.
But I think it's worth it. Like, if you want gold, what do? You dig mounds and mounds of earth.
True. True.
Okay. So if you want value generation, inside out approach, all of us have to spend time with the students.
On that note, just to kind of extend on that culture and values part, you've had a lot of global exposure, including your collaboration with the university and also as part of the IB World Schools Association. How do you think these international AI innovations or whatever innovations can be blended into our Indian cultural and educational needs?
It's interesting. 10 years ago, a professor from Linköping
Okay.
University in Sweden visited our school, and he felt that the constructive approach to teaching and learning is very interesting.
Mm.
Now, this is Sweden, very developed country in
Yeah.
Europe.
Yeah.
Okay. And he's a professor of teacher education in the
Okay.
university. So he felt that his students, for a summer course that
Mhm.
usually they opt for, he recommended, why don't you go to India? There's a school there, they're willing to collaborate. 10 years.
Okay.
Every year we have a bunch of 11
Students from
to
Sweden.
12 of them coming. They're all doing their equivalent of B.Ed, with
Okay.
their bachelor's in education. They come and spend time in our classrooms. They understand.
Mhm.
They teach our students and our teachers. We teach them a lot.
Okay.
These kind of exchanges,
Mm.
not only this university, being in the IB world for the last 17 years, visited many schools across the globe, particularly in Asia Pacific as an IB workshop
Mhm.
leader, evaluation leader. I visit many schools and
Okay.
I go to do workshops and training
Mhm.
programs
Mhm.
in many schools. This global exposure gives you the real lens of what is the most important element in a classroom
Mhm.
or for a human being. First thing, for me, everything is very personal.
Yeah.
Nothing is only professional. Everything is personal. For me, what is important as a human being, and from there,
Mhm.
what do I bring into my classroom? If I've seen this in Japan, how is it relatable in my context? If I have seen this in Switzerland or probably in South Korea where I went to, how is it practical or feasible in my classroom? So these kind of things uh, are great lessons. Like I said, principal learner. I
Good.
learn from everything, even that flight attendant in the flight to that student in the Japanese school that I went to last month. Okay, everyone will teach you something, and if you have not seen the world, you have not learned anything. Okay, I think that's the greatest lesson of traveling, that you get to know a lot, you learn a lot. But then there are many people who know a lot, don't do much about it. So
Mhm.
that's also very important, that you have to take something
Yeah. Yeah.
to your life and to your classroom or to your workspace.
Correct.
Okay.
Great, ma'am. You've worked in like more remote places and also like cosmopolitans as
Yeah.
well, right? Do you think AI can be leveraged to reduce the rural-urban education gap in any which way, or is it risky? It might even extend it further. I mean, if it is not used properly, what do you think?
It's why only AI.
Mm.
We talked about it with internet itself.
Yes. Yes.
When internet had come, we
Mm-hmm.
talked about it. AI, we will continue talking about it. While it has the greatest potential to transform the landscape of education, because um, teachers who don't know technology can be replaced.
Yeah. Yeah.
Technology cannot replace teachers.
True. True.
Professor Sugata Mitra made a
Mhm.
statement of this in 2008 or 9, I think. Okay. But the point, if I have to answer your question, AI or internet has the greatest potential because there are many places who don't have teachers even now.
Yes.
Okay. I think this can give a huge leverage to schools in rural areas and all that, provided the clause will always be there in every context, provided you use it prudently, use it wisely, and make sure that the purpose with which it was brought is focused upon.
Right. The right use cases, and yeah,
Absolutely.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And also just kind of dwelling deeper on the teacher aspect of it. How can you as a school prepare teachers to use AI confidently? Because a lot of them have a fear that it either might replace them or it's too technical for them to start using it.
I don't think as of now any teacher in India has that fear
Hmm.
that they will be replaced.
Yeah.
Okay, that AI will replace them. No, I don't think. But there are many teachers who still feel apprehensive about this, who also feel sad that they don't know enough of it.
Yeah.
But there are that many teachers who are using it not so greatly, also not so
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
prudently.
Yeah.
It should not be used for cutting short on their work. It should be used for optimizing their work and optimizing the learning in the classroom. But I don't think in India teachers are yet scared of being replaced because of AI. No.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, just to extend on that question, I feel see we've built a product ourselves for CBSE schools a lot, but I also feel it fits in very rightly for IB as well, because IB as a whole system itself is built on the Q&A system, like critical thinking and how teaching is happening through question and answers, and also a lot of activity based learning, which then teachers can also leverage to create those activities through AI and try building it. How do you think it might fit in the IB curriculum? This is just out of your experience
So
it
we
can.
use a lot of technology, whether it's IB or
Yeah.
it's CBSE or any board it may be. It
Hmm.
depends on the school
Yeah.
how
Yeah.
they want to bring in technology for um, making it relevant, significant, engaging, and challenging
Yeah.
to students. Okay, it depends on the school, depends on the people in the school, depends on the purpose for which it is used.
Mhm.
Okay, it is relevant everywhere, yet may not be everywhere.
Yeah.
Okay, so I would probably give a simple analogy to it. 2020,
Mhm.
there was a book circulating everywhere called Teach Like Finland.
Okay.
Okay, it's an American teacher who went to teach in Finland,
Mhm.
and he gives a stark difference between how American classrooms are and how Finnish classrooms are. The bottom line there is Finnish classrooms are less is more.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
American classrooms are more is more.
Yeah.
Okay. I would say the same thing with technology. Use it reasonably, because at the end of the day, if this is not challenged, you have not achieved anything in a classroom. This has to be challenged. But if this can be challenged only through a device, I would feel very sorry about it. It's the people, it's the environment, it's the context that will have to create. This should only be a supportive tool, but definitely not the mainstream tool for teaching and learning. While it is just supportive, that's it. For me, I would want it like that.
Great, ma'am. And one more thing, I mean, one interesting experience of mine with Silver Oaks was, I think Silver Oaks was the first school where had seen the circular form of seating in the classrooms. I think, I probably, I from the about 10 years of my experience, I kind of saw that as the first time. Any thought process behind that, ma'am? Are we
Collaborative
still
learning.
okay?
Because the world requires people to work with each other.
Mhm.
You can't bring up children as islands.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay. And you know very well that many adults are very apprehensive about interacting with strangers, discussing it. But the world is moving towards a different tangent where you need to work with others.
yes,
So for us, from pre-primary to grade 12, it's all group seating. They have to work in groups, they have to learn from each other, exchange their perspectives, learn from, discussions. So that's why, so if that's your purpose, your furniture also has to accommodate for
true,
that, no?
true, true,
So
true,
that's
true.
how we went for that.
Great. And finally, I mean, it brings me to my last question. You call yourself lifelong learner, right? And what is that one thing you are curious to learn in the about education, about technology, or whatever is the future which is going to come for education?
One thing, it can't be one thing.
One thing,
There's
and
so many things here. There's so much to learn in this
yeah,
world.
yeah.
Like, when you're talking about AI, I'll tell you what comes to my mind now. Last week of August, we went to Japan.
Uh-huh.
A group of us,
Okay.
principals, we went to Japan. We had an interaction with a gentleman who's about 60 now.
Mhm.
He lost his wife and daughter to there was a nuclear
Yeah, yeah,
disaster
yeah.
in 2014 or so.
Mhm.
Okay, tsunami followed by this.
Yes.
He lost his wife and his daughter in that.
Mhm.
He gave us a presentation, and he is now working for no nuclear
Mhm.
for
Okay,
okay,
got it.
yeah. His message was, every time you access chat gpt, how much of power is consumed,
Yeah.
and for that power, how much of nuclear facility has to be created to create this. One click on chat gpt consumes how much of power,
Oh,
nuclear power. So then he asked all of us, do you want the world to go nuclear,
okay.
or do you want the world to be eco-friendly? Somehow that haunts me.
Yeah.
I am refraining myself from clicking on ChatGPT after that, because that gentleman's face and those pictures that I've seen of his wife and the child come to my mind, and I feel guilty. Maybe I should not. Well, we can't really change the world. We can do something about the world. So I would say that lifelong learning is, it happens every day. It happened this morning when I was talking to this seventh grader.
Yeah.
He taught me that I need to understand more things about this age group
Mm.
than what I think I know.
Yeah.
So lifelong learning is everywhere. I have to learn. I don't know much about the future, how things are going to change, but go with the flow and make sure that every human being that you are interacting with makes the best of their life.
That's great, ma'am.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for all the thoughts and inspiring stories from across your experiences. Thank you so much for
My
joining us
pleasure.
today.
My pleasure, and thank you very much.